He was not a cat person. He had made that clear from the beginning, not unkindly, not with hostility, but with the steady indifference of someone who had simply never formed an attachment to them, and did not see why he should start now. The cat understood this, in the way cats understand these things, and they had arrived at a mutual arrangement. The cat stayed on her side of the relationship, he stayed on his, and the household functioned with a kind of diplomatic distance that suited everyone. Then he got sick, and the cat decided that none of that applied anymore. From the day he came home from the hospital, the cat did not leave his side, not in the way cats casually share a room with someone, actually beside him, pressed against him, returning every time he shifted, present in a way that was deliberate and continuous and entirely unlike anything the cat had done before. The man who had spent years being quietly ignored by this animal was now being watched over by it, and it took him time, weeks, maybe longer, to understand that what was happening was not random, that the cat had not simply changed its preferences, that something else entirely was operating. This is one of the most reported and least explained phenomena in the space of human-cat relationships. The cat that chooses the person who did not want it. The one who rearranges its entire behavior in response to someone it had been avoiding, not because that person changed, but because something in that person's condition did. It is not a coincidence, and it is not sentiment. It is something more specific than either of those things. The first thing to understand is what a cat is actually tracking when it bonds. People tend to assume that cat attachment follows the same logic as human attachment, that it develops through positive interaction, through affection given and received, through the accumulation of pleasant shared experiences. And some of that is true. Cats do respond to people who engage with them consistently and gently. But the research on feline attachment reveals something more complicated and in some ways more interesting. Cats are also tracking need. They are reading the internal state of the people around them, not just the behavioral signals. When you are well, when you're moving through your day with the ordinary energy of someone who does not require anything particular from the animals in the house, you register as one kind of signal to a cat. You are part of the environment, present, accounted for, not requiring specific attention. But when something changes in you, when your body's chemistry shifts, when your movement patterns alter, when the particular mixture of hormones and immune signals and stress responses that illness or grief or pain produces begins to broadcast, you become a different kind of signal, a more urgent one. A cat that has been maintaining polite distance from someone for years does not suddenly decide to become close to them. What happens is that the signal that person is producing crosses a threshold that the cat's behavioral system responds to. The person who is background noise becomes foreground. The relationship was never absent. It was simply dormant, waiting for a condition that would activate it. This is why the stories have the shape they do. Not gradual warming, not slow trust building over weeks of gentle interaction. A switch. The day he came home from the hospital, the cat was there. Before he had done anything to earn it. Before the dynamic between them had changed in any deliberate way. The cat was not responding to a new relationship. It was responding to a new signal from the same person who had always been there. Your cat is reading you constantly. Your breathing, your chemistry, the way your body moves through a room on a regular day versus a day when something is wrong. Most people never realize how complete that model is, how much information the cat has been accumulating since the first week. There is a whole layer of communication operating between you that functions entirely beneath the level of deliberate interaction. I put together a guide that covers exactly that layer. The signals cats read from the people they live with, including the ones those people never intend to send. It is called What Your Cat is Hiding, and the link is in the description. But there is more to this particular story that is worth staying with. The second thing to understand is what the cat is doing when it responds to illness in someone it had been avoiding. Cats are often described as solitary animals, and in the wild, in certain respects, that is accurate. But domesticated cats who live with humans have developed something that wild cats do not have in the same form: a specific attachment to individual people. The research describes this as a selective bond, not loyalty to the species, not generalized affection for whoever feeds them, but an organized relationship with particular individuals that functions similarly in some ways to attachment relationships between adult humans. And here is what that research also shows. The bond is not always visible. A cat can have a deep and real attachment to a person who it appears, from the outside, to be barely tolerating. The cat that lives with two people and clearly prefers one of them, following that person, sleeping near them, seeking them out, does not necessarily have no relationship with the other one. It has a different kind of relationship with the other one, a quieter one that does not require daily maintenance in the way the primary bond does. But it is still there, and it is still organized around that person in a way that becomes visible under specific conditions. Illness is one of those conditions. Grief is another. Vulnerability, in any of its forms, tends to activate the attachment that has been operating silently underneath the ordinary surface of the household. The cat that seemed indifferent was not indifferent. It was simply not yet required. This is the part that people find hardest to absorb, because it runs against the way we usually think about relationships. We assume that closeness is built from the outside in, from behaviour to feeling. We show up, we put in the time, we earn the bond. But with cats it appears to work differently. The bond exists before it is expressed. The expression waits for a signal that asks for it. He did not earn the cat's attention by being kinder to it or engaging with it differently. He earned it by needing it. And the cat, without language or deliberation or any conscious process that we would recognize as a decision, came. There is also something worth understanding about what the cat is not doing in these moments, because the misreading of it is common and leads people to dismiss what is actually happening. The cat is not being opportunistic. This is the explanation people reach for first. The cat is drawn to warmth, to stillness, to a person who is now lying down instead of moving around. And there is a surface level at which that is partially true. Sick people are quieter, stiller, less likely to make sudden movements. They are, in some ways, easier to be near, but this explanation collapses when you look at the specifics of the behaviour. The cat does not simply stay near the sick person the way it might stay near a warm radiator. It returns when the person moves. It repositions when they shift. It tracks. The attention is not passive. It is continuous and active, organised around the specific person rather than the general warmth. That is not opportunism. That is something else. The cat is also not confused or acting randomly. The behaviour is too consistent across too many different animals and too many different households to be explained by coincidence or error. What the cat is doing, in the best framework we have for understanding it, is responding to a real and specific signal from a real and specific person, a signal that the cat's sensory system can detect and that the cat's attachment system knows how to respond to. The response is not a mistake. It is the right response produced by the right system in the right direction. There is something in the specific quality of those stories that is worth naming, because it appears consistently enough to mean something. The person who was sick and found the cat suddenly beside them often reports not understanding at first whether to trust it. They have a history with this animal, months or years of mutual avoidance, and now the cat is there and will not leave, and the human does not know what to do with that. They sometimes push the cat away gently, half expecting it to go, half wanting it to stay. The cat comes back. They push it away again. The cat comes back again. And at some point the person stops pushing and lets it stay. And something changes in them that is not only about the illness. What changes is the understanding that the indifference was never the whole story, that the cat had been tracking them all along, that the distance between them was not rejection, it was simply the resting state of a bond that did not yet have a reason to make itself visible, and that when the reason arrived, the cat was already there, already oriented toward them, already prepared to do something that it had always, in some way, been prepared to do. The cat that chose the person it never liked is not a mystery. It is a cat reading a signal that crossed a threshold. It is a bond that had no occasion to express itself until the occasion arrived. It is the quiet form of attachment, the one that does not require daily gestures or obvious signs, becoming suddenly, unmistakably present. And for the person lying there, in whatever version of reduced and altered they have become, sick, grieving, diminished in some way that they're still getting used to, the cat arriving is not a small thing. It is evidence of something they had not known was there, a relationship they thought they were not part of, a bond that was always operating in the background, waiting. He got better eventually, and the cat, having done what it came to do, returned to something closer to its old behaviour, its old distance, its old preference for the other side of the relationship. Not entirely. Something had changed between them that could not fully reverse, but mostly the terms of the arrangement returned to what they had always been. There is a particular kind of person who hears these stories and says, that is just an animal following instinct. And in a technical sense, that is correct. The cat is not running a moral calculation. It is not deciding in any way we would recognize as deliberate to be generous or loyal or kind. It is responding to a signal. It is doing what its system does when the signal arrives. But the same is true of most of what humans do when they show up for each other in difficult moments. We do not, in those moments, deliberate our way into care. We simply go. The mechanism does not diminish the meaning of the arrival. The cat came. It stayed. It came back when pushed away. It remained through the worst of it. And it did this for someone it had not particularly chosen before, because something in that person had crossed a threshold that the cat's entire relational system was built to respond to. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, very close to the definition of what it means to be there for someone. There is also a version of this story that does not involve illness. Sometimes it is grief, the person who loses someone and finds that the cat, who had always preferred to keep its distance, will not leave them alone during the months that follow. Sometimes it is a period of sustained stress or depression, invisible from the outside but chemically present in ways the cat can read. Sometimes it is something that the person themselves cannot name, a long stretch of difficulty that they are carrying quietly, that no one else in the household has noticed, that the cat has been tracking for weeks before it decides to close the distance. The signal does not require a diagnosis. It requires only that something in the person has shifted enough to cross the threshold. And the cat, which has been building a detailed and precise model of that person since the first week in the household, their chemistry, their movement patterns, their baseline state, notices the shift and responds to it. Not because the cat has been waiting for permission, because the cat has been paying attention all along. That is what the indifference was all those years. Not absence. Attention without occasion. A relationship that had not yet been called upon to show itself. Except that now he knew. Tell me in the comments, has your cat ever chosen someone who was not a cat person? Someone who had kept their distance? Or even someone who was a little wary of it and everything shifted? What happened? What did that look like? Those stories deserve to be told.